The silver exploration vessel Horizon drifted silently through the outer reaches of an unremarkable yellow star system. Commander Trell, with his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, studied the small blue planet appearing on the main view screen. "Preliminary scans complete, Commander," reported Science Officer Vex, her voice buzzing slightly through her mandibles. "This planet shows unusual readings." Trell leaned forward. "Explain." "The atmosphere contains significant oxygen, a corrosive gas. Surface gravity at 1.0 g. Extremely high. Temperature variations from -50 to +50 degrees. And most concerning," Vex paused, "biological readings suggest complex multicellular life forms everywhere." The bridge fell silent. Most habitable planets in the Coalition hosted simple life or carefully engineered ecosystems. Planets with naturally occurring complex life were rare and dangerous. "Classification?" Trell asked, already knowing the answer. "Class 5 Deathworld," Vex confirmed. "The highest rating possible." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Deathworlds were typically quarantined, studied from orbit, and left alone. No sentient species had ever evolved on anything above a Class 3. "I'm detecting artificial structures and electromagnetic signals," the communications officer announced. "This world has a technological civilization." "Impossible," Trell whispered. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The blue planet was sending radio and television broadcasts into space. The signals revealed beings who called themselves humans, and their world Earth. The Coalition's first contact protocols were clear. Trell ordered communication established. 3 days later, the Horizon hovered above a flat desert area designated for the meeting. Coalition safety protocols required all crew to wear full environmental suits with filtration systems. Trell led the small delegation down the landing ramp. The bright sunlight felt harsh even through his protective visor. The gravity pulled at his limbs, making each step laborious. A group of humans waited nearby. They stood without protective gear, their skin exposed to the caustic air. 2 humans stepped forward, a tall male and a smaller female. "Welcome to Earth," the male said. "I'm Commander Drake of the United Earth Alliance, and this is Dr. Ellis, our chief scientist." Trell tried not to show his shock. The humans were breathing poison, standing in radiation from their sun, on a planet with crushing gravity, and they appeared completely comfortable. "We appreciate your peaceful approach," Dr. Ellis added, smiling. "This is a historic moment for our people." Trell struggled to maintain composure. "We represent the Galactic Coalition, an alliance of 47 civilized worlds. We detected your signals and came to investigate." Dr. Ellis stepped closer, her movements quick and fluid despite the gravity that left Trell struggling. "Would you like to see our research facility? We've prepared refreshments." Science Officer Vex spoke privately through Trell's comlink. "Commander, scans indicate these creatures are carbon-based with iron-rich blood. They're consuming oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. They're breathing poison as a biological process." "Understood," Trell replied. To the humans, he said, "We would be honored, but our biology requires these protective suits on your world." Drake nodded. "Of course." Dr. Ellis theorized you might find our environment challenging. As they walked toward the nearby buildings, Trell noticed how effortlessly the humans moved. Their muscles and bones had evolved under this crushing gravity. Their lungs processed corrosive oxygen. Their exposed skin resisted the solar radiation. The implications were terrifying. By the end of that first meeting, Trell had made his decision. Against all protocols, he formally invited Earth to join the Coalition. Not because humans deserved membership, but because the alternative was unthinkable. Any species that evolved on this death world would be better as allies than enemies. As the Horizon departed Earth orbit, Trell sent his first report to Coalition headquarters. Its opening line would become famous throughout the galaxy. "We have discovered the most dangerous species in known space, and they call their hellish world home." 6 months after first contact, the first human delegation stepped aboard Central Station, the massive orbital hub of the Galactic Coalition. Despite extensive briefings, nothing had prepared Captain Miller for the reality of alien space. "Remember," Ambassador Wilson whispered, "move slowly. Most species find our speed alarming." Miller nodded, forcing himself to take measured steps. The station's artificial gravity was set to 0.6 g, making him feel uncomfortably light. Around them, aliens of various shapes and sizes moved with deliberate grace. A tall, willowy being with blue skin approached. "Welcome to Central Station. I am Coordinator Prell. We have prepared special quarters for your delegation with Earth-standard gravity and atmosphere." "Thank you," Wilson replied, "but we're adapting to Coalition standards. No special accommodations needed." Prell's large eyes widened slightly, the equivalent of shock. "As you wish. Your resilience is remarkable." That word, remarkable, followed humans everywhere in their first year among the stars. Their ability to eat foods toxic to other species was remarkable. Their capacity to heal from injuries was remarkable. Their comfort in temperature ranges that would kill most sentient beings was remarkable. Most remarkable of all was their strength. In standard station gravity, humans could lift 3 times what similarly sized aliens could manage. This discovery happened accidentally when Engineer Jones casually moved a cargo container that normally required mechanical assistance. Coalition military officials noticed. "Captain Miller, the message read, report to Coalition Defense Headquarters at 800 tomorrow." The following morning, Miller stood before Admiral Zorix, the 6-limbed head of Coalition Defense Forces. "We've reviewed your military background," Zorix said, mandibles clicking. 20 years in your Earth Forces, special operations experience. We would like you to serve as advisor to our elite units." Miller maintained a neutral expression. "May I ask why?" "Admiral, the Ravagers have destroyed 3 outposts in the past month. Our regular forces are insufficient." Miller had read about the Ravagers, a hostile species from the galaxy's outer rim who refused Coalition membership and attacked shipping lanes. "With respect, Admiral, I'm just one human. What difference would I make?" Zorix's compound eyes fixed on Miller. "You're not the only human we're recruiting. And based on physical testing, a single human soldier equals 5 of our best warriors." Within weeks, Miller found himself training the first mixed-species combat unit with humans at its core. Coalition soldiers watched in amazement as humans demonstrated their combat techniques. What seemed routine on Earth, running several kilometers in full gear, fighting hand-to-hand, operating without sleep for days, was impossible for most aliens. Meanwhile, on Coalition worlds, the first civilian humans were making their own impact. Earth animals, brought as companions, caused constant alarm. A Coalition scientist fainted upon witnessing a small child with a house cat. Learning that humans kept smaller predators as pets was disturbing enough, but seeing the natural hunting abilities of the feline left lasting impressions. In research labs across Coalition space, scientists secretly studied human biology. They mapped human DNA, analyzed muscle density, and measured reaction times. The results were classified at the highest levels. "These creatures evolved on a planet trying to kill them," noted Chief Researcher Vrin in a secured report. "Their entire evolutionary history is one of survival against overwhelming odds. Their bodies are designed to endure damage, fight infection, and recover from trauma at rates unheard of elsewhere." The report concluded, "It is fortunate humans appear peaceful and cooperative. A species with their physical capabilities and innate survival instincts could, if hostile, present an unprecedented threat to Coalition security." As the first year of human integration ended, a new Coalition saying emerged. "As strong as a human." It wasn't a compliment. It was a warning. On distant Coalition outposts, reports of Ravager attacks increased. The time for humans to prove their worth was approaching faster than anyone expected. The Coalition outpost on Nivis Prime burned. Ravager attack ships had appeared without warning, their energy weapons carving through the settlement's defenses like paper. Coalition forces fought bravely but fell in devastating numbers. From the command center, Governor Tass sent his final transmission. Outpost overrun. Survivors in Bunker Section 12. Requesting immediate extraction. At Coalition headquarters, Admiral Orcs reviewed the situation with grim resignation. This marked the 6th attack in 2 months, each deadlier than the last. Standard Coalition forces simply couldn't stand against Ravager brutality. "We have no choice," Zorix said to the assembled command council. "Deploy the human units." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The integration of humans into coalition defense forces remained controversial. Humans were unpredictable, aggressive, and frightening, even to allies. Commander Len objected. "They're untested in actual combat conditions." "We have no alternatives," Zorix replied. "The evacuation ship at Nivis Prime will be shot down unless we secure that landing zone." The decision was made. Transport ships carrying the 1st Human Special Tactical Unit launched toward Nivis Prime. Major Thompson, the unit commander, briefed his 30 soldiers as they approached the combat zone. "Coalition forces are pinned down. Our job is to clear the landing zone and hold it until evacuation is complete. Standard weapons only. We don't want to show all our capabilities yet." The humans nodded, checking their coalition-issued energy rifles. They had trained with these weapons for months, though many privately preferred their Earth weapons. Their transport landed hard, 2 kilometers from the colony perimeter. As the ramp lowered, the humans got their first look at Nivis Prime, a world with thin air, pale blue vegetation, and 0.7 g gravity. "Perfect conditions," Thompson observed. In the lighter gravity, humans could move faster and carry more than on Earth. The squad moved out, covering ground at a pace that would have exhausted most coalition species. When they reached the colony's edge, they saw the situation was worse than reported. Ravager forces had complete control of the settlement's outer rings. Dozens of the insectoid warriors patrolled between buildings. "Sergeant Foster, take your team around the east perimeter," Thompson ordered. "Baker, west side. We'll create a diversion here." The humans moved with a coordination that came from centuries of warfare on Earth. Unlike most coalition species who evolved toward cooperation, humans had evolved through competition and conflict. War was in their history, their myths, their blood. Foster's team encountered the first Ravagers near a storage facility. The aliens stood nearly 2 meters tall, with chitinous armor and 4 arms wielding various weapons. They were feared throughout the galaxy for their savagery. The first Ravager spotted Foster and raised an alarm call. It never completed the sound. Foster's rifle shot hit perfectly, finding the gap in the creature's natural armor. 3 more Ravagers appeared, firing wildly. What happened next would be reported throughout Coalition space with equal parts awe and horror. The humans didn't take cover as Coalition soldiers would. They advanced into the fire, moving with terrifying speed. When their energy rifles overheated, they switched to backup weapons, primitive metal blades that Coalition species considered barbaric. Private Collins was hit by Ravager fire, but continued fighting despite a wound that would have killed most Coalition soldiers. The Ravagers, encountering resistance unlike anything in their experience, began to retreat. On the western flank, Baker's team had already secured their sector. Thompson's diversion had turned into a direct assault that broke through to the colony center. Within 45 minutes, the landing zone was clear. Human soldiers stood guard as the evacuation ship descended, their uniforms spattered with both human blood and the greenish ichor of Ravagers. Governor Tass stared in shock as he boarded the rescue ship. "What are they?" he whispered to his aide. "They call themselves humans," came the reply. "And they come from a planet called Earth." As news of the victory spread, Coalition military leaders began to understand. They had found the perfect weapon against the Ravager threat. The galaxy's most peaceful alliance now wielded its most effective warriors. creatures evolved on a death world named Earth. The morning air on Earth felt thick and heavy to the alien cadets. Though the training facility had been built in a region humans considered mild, the 1G gravity alone left many struggling to stand upright. A line of 24 beings from 12 coalition species stood at attention, trying not to show their discomfort. Instructor Wilson walked slowly down the line, his boots crunching on gravel. To the human eye, he looked like a typical military veteran: steady gaze, perfect posture, and an expression that revealed nothing. To the aliens, he was a terrifying specimen of Earth's dominant predator species. "Welcome to Earth Combat Academy," Wilson said, voice carrying across the yard. "You were chosen because your governments believe you can handle what we teach here. Most of you will fail." The cadet from Talos, a methane breather in an environmental suit, shifted nervously. His 4 tentacle-like limbs trembled under Earth's brutal gravity. "This facility exists for one purpose," Wilson continued: "to create mixed-species combat units capable of defending the Coalition against any threat. The Ravagers taught us conventional forces aren't enough." He gestured toward a nearby field where human cadets were running an obstacle course, climbing walls, and crawling through mud with ease. "You won't be expected to match human physical performance. That's impossible, but you will learn to work with humans, to think like humans, and to use your unique abilities alongside ours." The first day broke 3 cadets. One suffered gravity sickness and was sent home. 2 others simply quit, unwilling to endure Earth's hostile environment. The remaining aliens watched them go with envy and determination. By week 2, the training began in earnest. While physical conditioning continued at levels appropriate for each species, the real focus was tactical thinking. "This is your history lesson," Wilson announced, activating a holographic display. "Earth's major conflicts over the past 1,000 years." The aliens watched in silent horror as human warfare unfolded before them. From ancient battles with primitive weapons to modern conflicts with devastating technology. The sheer variety of combat techniques, the ingenuity of weapons design, and most disturbing of all, the willingness of humans to endure unimaginable hardship during war. "Your species evolved toward cooperation," Wilson explained. "Ours evolved through competition and conflict. We don't celebrate this history, but we don't hide from it either." Cadet Mira, a crystalline being from the silicon-based Ardani, raised a glowing appendage. "How can a species with such violent history be trusted with coalition security?" Wilson nodded, having expected this question. "The same adaptability that made us effective warriors also allowed us to create peace on our world. We're offering you the benefits of both." Training continued through Earth's seasons. The aliens learned to endure rain, snow, heat, and cold, all conditions that would be regulated on civilized worlds. They learned Earth military history, strategy, and tactics. Most importantly, they learned to work alongside humans who could outrun, outfight, and often outthink them. During the final exercise, mixed teams were dropped into Earth's most challenging environments: deserts, mountains, jungles, and Arctic regions. Their mission: survive, navigate, and complete objectives while evading human hunter teams. Team Delta found themselves in the Amazon rainforest, humidity fogging the environmental suits of non-oxygen breathers. Their human team leader, Corporal Banks, helped the Talosan cadet adjust his breathing apparatus. "Remember your advantages," Banks said. "Grax can see heat signatures. Mira doesn't need sleep. My strength and endurance are useful, but your specialized abilities make this team complete." When Team Delta emerged from the jungle 5 days later, having completed all objectives without detection, even Instructor Wilson looked impressed. At graduation, Admiral Zorix addressed the surviving cadets, less than half the original number. "You have done what many thought impossible," the Admiral said. "You have trained on a Class 5 Deathworld and emerged stronger. The beings standing beside you, both human and non-human, represent the future of coalition defense." As the ceremony concluded, Wilson watched his graduates with quiet pride. The galaxy was changing. Earth was no longer just the frightening home of an unexpectedly powerful species. It had become something new, the training ground for the Coalition's guardians. Dr. Reed wiped sweat from her forehead as she adjusted the microscope. The Coalition science vessel Inquiry orbited Earth, its laboratories filled with the planet's most dangerous specimens, all carefully contained in specialized chambers. Recording session 47, Reed spoke to her data system. Comparative analysis of Earth predators versus galactic equivalents. On the screen before her, cellular structures from a dozen Earth creatures displayed alongside similar species from throughout Coalition space. The differences were striking and consistent. A soft chime announced the arrival of Chief Scientist Dorn. The tall, spindly alien moved carefully in the ship's Earth normal gravity section. "Any progress, Dr. Reed?" Dorn asked, his translator converting the series of clicks into English. Reed gestured to her displays. "It's remarkable, sir. Every Earth organism shows the same patterns: denser cellular structures, more efficient energy usage, and incredibly robust repair mechanisms." "Even the herbivores?" Dorn asked. "Everything," Reed confirmed. "A rabbit, what humans consider a harmless prey animal, could survive conditions that would kill most Coalition species. Their cardiovascular efficiency alone is outstanding." Dorn's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his kind. "The Coalition Council is growing concerned. They want explanations for human biological superiority." Reed nodded. After 3 years studying Earth life, she finally had answers. She activated the main display, showing Earth's complete evolutionary timeline. "The key isn't just that Earth is a high-gravity world with atmospheric oxygen," Reed explained. "It's the combination of factors that created what I call compounding evolutionary pressure." The display shifted to show Earth's prehistoric periods, when massive predators dominated the planet. Most Coalition worlds had 1 or 2 survival challenges that shaped evolution. Earth had dozens, all happening simultaneously. Reed highlighted various elements as she spoke: higher radiation levels from their sun, extreme temperature variations, constant tectonic activity, regularly occurring extinction events. "And the predators," Dorn added, looking at an image of a Tyrannosaurus Rex with visible discomfort. "Exactly," Reed continued. "Earth evolved predators so effective that prey species had to develop extraordinary survival mechanisms. Then predators evolved to counter those mechanisms. This cycle repeated for hundreds of millions of years." She switched to images of modern Earth creatures: bears, sharks, lions, even smaller predators like wolverines and honey badgers. "These modern species represent the pinnacle of evolutionary arms races. They're the survivors of countless battles for supremacy." Dorn moved closer to the display. "And humans, where do they fit?" Reed brought up the human evolutionary timeline. Humans had additional pressures. They weren't the strongest or fastest, so they developed intelligence. But crucially, they retained the physical adaptations from their evolutionary history. "Such as?" Dorn prompted. "Endurance running that exceeds any known species. Throwing accuracy that allowed hunting from safe distances. Problem-solving intelligence that turned environmental threats into advantages." Reed paused. "And most significantly, their adaptive immune system and wound healing capabilities." She displayed medical scans showing the human soldier recovering from injuries sustained in battle against Ravagers. This wound would be fatal to any Coalition species. The human was back on duty in 2 weeks. Dorn's appendages trembled slightly. "The Council will want recommendations." Reed had prepared for this. "First, establish Earth as a protected biosphere. Its evolutionary unique conditions cannot be replicated elsewhere. Second, implement strict containment protocols for Earth species throughout Coalition space. Even their microorganisms show the same resilience patterns." She hesitated before adding, "Some Council members have suggested quarantining Earth entirely." "And your opinion on that, Dr. Reed?" Dorn asked quietly. Reed looked at the images of Earth's deadliest creatures, and then at a photo of human children playing peacefully in a park. "Impossible and unnecessary," she replied. "Humans have already spread throughout Coalition space. More importantly, they've proven themselves as allies. The same evolutionary pressures that made them dangerous also instilled cooperation as a survival strategy." As Dorn departed, Reed turned back to her specimens. The shark tooth on her desk, a gift from a human colleague, gleamed under the laboratory lights. Earth had produced countless perfect killing machines throughout its history. Humans were simply the most successful ones. The colony world of New Tera glowed blue-green against the blackness of space. Established just 18 months earlier as humanity's first extrasolar settlement, its 10,000 inhabitants had transformed the alien landscape into a thriving community. From the observation deck of his farmhouse, Tom Parker watched his children playing under the light of New Tera's twin moons. The planet's 0.8 g gravity made their jumps higher, their runs faster than on Earth. They had adapted quickly, as humans always did. The emergency alert shattered the evening calm, its harsh tone causing Parker to flinch. "All colonists, hostile ships detected entering orbit. This is not a drill. Proceed to designated shelter areas immediately." Parker had served in Earth's military before becoming a farmer. He knew what the calm voice didn't say. Ravagers had found New Tera. Across the colony, civilians moved with practiced efficiency. Unlike most Coalition species who might panic, these humans had prepared for this possibility. Every adult had basic combat training. Every home contained emergency supplies and weapons. In the colony's modest defense center, Governor Barnes assessed their options. The planetary shield would hold against bombardment for perhaps an hour. Their small defense fleet could delay but not stop the 15 Ravager ships descending toward them. "Coalition forces have been alerted," her communications officer reported. "Admiral Jackson's fleet is responding, but they're 4 hours out at best." Barnes nodded grimly. "Then we hold for 4 hours. Activate all defense protocols. Arm the civilian militia." 20 minutes later, the first Ravager landing craft pierced the atmosphere. Colony defense turrets tracked them, destroying 3 before the others deployed countermeasures. 7 craft landed at various points around the main settlement. The Ravagers had expected minimal resistance from what their intelligence indicated was a civilian farming colony. They discovered instead a population ready for them. In the northern quarter, Parker led a group of farmers armed with hunting rifles and repurposed farming equipment. They ambushed the first Ravager squad to enter their district, using their knowledge of the terrain to deadly advantage. Near the colony center, science teacher Laura Bell coordinated from a reinforced school building that now served as a command post. Her students, teenagers by Earth standards, operated communications equipment and assisted with medical care for the wounded. The Ravagers, facing unexpected resistance, grew more brutal. They began destroying residential buildings and firing indiscriminately into civilian areas. Governor Barnes, wounded but still commanding, received the message he had been waiting for. "Coalition fleet will arrive in 30 minutes. Hold your positions." For the colonists, those 30 minutes stretched into eternity. Ravager forces had penetrated to the colony center. The defensive perimeter had collapsed in 3 sectors. Emergency medical facilities overflowed with injured. Yet the humans did not surrender. Parker's militia group, down to 7 members from the original 20, held the crucial northern approach to the power distribution center. Using improvised explosives created by the colony's chemists, they turned a narrow street into a death trap for advancing Ravagers. Bell's school command post coordinated the remaining defense forces, rerouting militia groups to counter Ravager movements. When Ravagers breached the school's outer defenses, the teenagers joined the adults in the final defensive line. Then the sky lit up with weapon fire as coalition ships engaged the Ravager fleet in orbit. Admiral Jackson had pushed his ships beyond safe limits, arriving earlier than expected. Ground forces deployed. Came the transmission. Hold position. The Ravagers, caught between orbital bombardment and ground resistance, began a disorganized retreat. As they fled toward their landing craft, Coalition dropships delivered combat teams of humans and alien allies trained at Earth Combat Academy. When Admiral Jackson's shuttle landed at the colony center 4 hours later, he found a settlement damaged but unbroken. Governor Barnes, arm in a makeshift sling, greeted him. "You're late, Admiral," she said with a tired smile. Jackson surveyed the evidence of battle around them. The destroyed buildings, the makeshift barricades, the wounded being treated in the open square. The Coalition Council didn't believe a civilian colony could hold against a Ravager assault force, he admitted. Barnes gestured to her people, farmers, teachers, engineers, and children, all of whom had fought like seasoned warriors. "They forgot where we come from, Admiral." Jackson nodded. "They won't make that mistake again." The great hall of the Coalition Council gleamed with polished stone and ancient symbols representing the 47 member species. Today, a 48th emblem would join them, the blue and green sphere of Earth. High Chancellor Vex stood before the assembled representatives, her 4 arms raised for silence. 10 years ago, we discovered a Class 5 Deathworld harboring a species unlike any we had encountered before, she began. Today, we recognize that species not just as members of our coalition, but as its defenders. The formal ceremony proceeded with careful dignity. Ambassador Wilson accepted Earth's position on the Council. Trade agreements were finalized. Cultural exchange programs were expanded. But the true purpose of this gathering came next. Admiral Jackson, now commander of all Coalition defense forces, stepped forward. Behind him stood 100 beings in matching dark uniforms, half of them human, half from various Coalition species. "Today marks the official creation of the Terran Guard," Jackson announced, "an elite force dedicated to protecting all sentient beings within Coalition space." The first row of guards stepped forward. Each placed a hand or appendage on the ancient stone of covenant at the center of the hall. Major Thompson, the human who had led the first successful mission against the Ravagers years earlier, spoke the oath. "We who come from Earth pledge our strength, our skill, and if necessary, our lives to defend all peaceful beings of this galaxy. Though we were shaped by conflict, we choose to serve protection. Though we were forged by competition, we stand for cooperation. Though we emerged from a world of death, we dedicate ourselves to life." One by one, the guards took their oath. The Coalition representatives watched with mixed emotions, relief at having such formidable protectors, lingering unease at the martial prowess these Earth-trained warriors represented. As the ceremony concluded, Chancellor Vex guided Ambassador Wilson and Admiral Jackson to a private chamber deep beneath the council hall. There, preserved in a secure vault, lay artifacts rarely seen by anyone outside the highest levels of Coalition leadership. "Before humans joined us," Vex explained, "we discovered something troubling." She activated a display showing ancient stone tablets and fragments of primitive data storage. These come from a dozen worlds, separated by thousands of light years. They date from 20,000 to 100,000 years ago. All contain the same warning. Wilson leaned closer, examining the translated text that appeared. "Beware the world of death. If the puridiators emergi, the HFY will traem and bill." Jackson's expression remained neutral. "You believe this refers to Earth?" Vex nodded. "The descriptions match. Third planet around a yellow star, blue oceans, green land, high gravity, oxygen atmosphere. Even the location coordinates, primitive as they are, align with Earth's position." "You've known this for 10 years?" Wilson asked quietly. "Yes, some council members wanted Earth quarantined immediately. Others suggested more permanent solutions." Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Wiser voices prevailed. "We chose to meet humans as potential friends rather than feared enemies." "Why show us now?" Jackson asked. "Because the choice made 10 years ago has been vindicated," Vex replied. "The predators emerged from the Deathworld, and yes, the galaxy trembled, but not from fear. From hope." 1 year later, the Earth Museum of Galactic Cultures opened its doors in what had once been the United Nations building in New York. The museum's most popular exhibit featured a recreation of environments from various coalition worlds, showing the vast diversity of life throughout the galaxy. A group of alien children on a school trip gathered around their human guide, their environmental suits allowing them to experience Earth's heavy gravity and oxygen-rich atmosphere in safety. And this, the guide said, pointing to a simple bronze plaque, contains the oath of the Guardians that protects us all. A small child from Telos raised a tentacle. Is it true that humans are the most dangerous beings in the galaxy? The guide smiled gently. We evolved on a challenging world that made us strong. But true strength isn't about being dangerous. It's about using whatever abilities you have to protect others. The child considered this, then asked, "Can anyone become a guardian?" "Absolutely," the guide replied. "The first guardians came from Earth, but today they come from every world. What matters isn't where you were born, but what you choose to do with the strengths you have." Outside the museum, Earth's blue sky arched over a planet that had once been isolated in the cosmos, but now stood at the center of galactic security. Ships from dozens of worlds moved through the atmosphere, carrying visitors, diplomats, and students eager to understand the Deathworld that had become the cradle of the galaxy's guardians.